Hello and welcome to another We Interview video here on Gamingtrend. My name is Adam Marino, and today we have a chance to talk to the wonderfully gifted Anjali Bhimani and Julia Bianco to talk about their new podcast called Character Select.
Yes.
First of all, I've listened to the podcast, and every episode they go on and on about their guests. They blush every time. I'm going to be able to do the same thing to them this time.
Oh, no.
So please welcome Anjali, well known for her work in Overwatch, Apex Legends, Miss Marvel. I loved her in Dimension 20, where she started as Lady Mongu, and you stressed me out to the max in Modern Family, just the way you did to poor Claire. And so first guest, and then we have the wonderful co-host of the Character Select podcast, Julia, and you've heard her work in so many Game of the Year nominees, including Spider-Man 2, Legend of Zelda. I got to review Gotham Knights, and I really loved that game. I had a whole lot of fun with it. I'm a huge DC fan, so Nightwing is my favorite. So got to enjoy that, and more from her casting choices. Both are amazing writers as well, published in many avenues, and now we're here to talk about Character Select. Welcome, you guys, and thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, your enthusiasm is amazing. It feels like you're on our show with us.
I was a theater major.
Well, there we go. So you get it. You know how to bring it.
Sure.
We get this excited. You're right. You were right. It's sort of like if I blushed, you would see burgundy, right?
Okay, let's jump on in. We've got a lot to talk about, and we've got a lot of different things we could talk about. But the first thing is, like I said, I've had the pleasure of hearing the first few episodes that you have out right now that everyone can hear right now, including Jennifer Hale, Matt Mercer, Michael Chu, and Erika Ishii, which again, I got to see on Dimension 20 and Dropout. Love them. For those who haven't had a chance to hear this yet, what drove you to make this podcast? What is the purpose of this podcast? Give us that elevator pitch.
Sure. So a few years ago, Julia and I had already become friends because we had written books at the same time. We were in the gaming industry, so we knew each other. We'd done a thing for the LA Times on motion capture, but we ended up both one morning being on, and not knowing that we were both going to be there, being on sort of the committee, I guess it was the jury for the BAFTAs for the best supporting performer in or best supporting performance in a game. And we had to narrow down a long list to a short list. And so at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is too early to be on a Zoom for anyone, but at 6 o'clock in the morning, we jumped on, we saw each other's faces, we got excited, so we didn't need as much coffee. And then we proceeded to have this hours-long conversation with people from all parts of the gaming industry, from all backgrounds, from all different vantage points. And we were both taken by how reverent and respectful and specific the conversation was about everybody's performances, and how the input from people from different lanes in gaming was stuff that we never maybe would have thought of. Talking about the specific speed of animation or the sound effects, or how the narrative was written and how a character had to serve a particular purpose that may have hemmed in the actor rather than let them run free. And so it was such a great conversation that as soon as we hung up on the Zoom, we immediately got on the phone, talked about how awesome the conversation was, and said, this conversation needs to be out in the world. We need to be sharing these conversations that are not just about actors or with actors, although some are and some should be, but that are conversations that we are having with narrative directors and sound designers and performance directors and composers and casting directors, and so that we can see all of the parts that go into an incredible performance. So that was how it was born. And then we decided to have this really cool structure that we think is really cool, because it enables us to enable our guests to talk about their peers. And I'm going to hand it over to Julia for that part.
Yeah, so I apologize. There's a poorly timed lawnmower outside my window. So
all good. You
okay,
can't hear it.
So, you know, when we wanted to talk about the journey into games with our guests, but we also thought it would be really cool to get them all excited and talking about other character performances and things that inspire them as a way to both kind of reflect on the industry, where it's come, how many different kind of factors were involved back 20 years ago versus now, and also just hear them get excited. And what Anjali has said is like one of the best benefits that we didn't realize was getting the pride and the joy of the person whose performance it was hearing the reference. So David Hayter hearing Matt Mercer talking about him is pretty freaking special.
It's been an unexpected extra joy that we've had to see the joy on their faces, and especially when it's coming from your peers and from people who know how many different things go into it and how much goes into it, and that all of us have varying degrees, I think, of that insecurity of, is everything that I wanted to do with this coming through?
Mhm.
Are people really affected by this? So getting to hear it from your peers and not just from players, although from hearing it from players, it never gets old because
Sure.
it's also, but like also hearing it from your peers who know how much went into it is really, really special.
You really got that from the podcast with Erica talking about GLaDOS, where it's like you guys got to go in hard on how that impacted their life and their career trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next question, I'd be a fool not to ask you a little bit about Desiquest, and you've got stuff going on all the time. You've been able to add some of your personal cultures into Desiquest, featuring an all South Asian cast. Are there mechanics that married well to your story, versus are there anything that game designers can kind of add to their game to like help make those fun decisions people make easier? Because I know that there's things that like there's not stuff in D&D 5e that includes the stuff that you guys are doing, and I know that with your work on Dimension 20, Brennan has had to change things around just slightly to make things work. Is there something that you think mechanically either works, does not work, would like to be added?
What a great question. I think specific to South Asian culture, it's very hard to say because every DM has a different flavor. Every DM is creating a different world. And one way or the other, no matter what culture you are featuring, it is still fantasy. Yeah. So Jasmine put in a few really, really, really cool devices that I think were wonderful. And one of them was the tea kettle, which is this otherworldly zone that you go into when you leave the table. Characters who did a particular thing or had a particular opportunity would get this card. And when they use their card, they get transported to the tea kettle and end up talking to a god and figuring out, you know, and swaying fate a little bit, which is very, very cool because so much of Indian mythology is a part of what we're doing in this fantasy world. And mythology is such a part of role-playing games in general. So I love that mechanic. Any kind of mechanic that allows people to step into a different plane or a different world like that, I think is very, very special. And then I just think, honestly, like when you're featuring a culture, talk about the food. You don't need a mechanic. Just
it's so
make
real.
sure the food is in there. Because
describe food to me all the time.
All the time. Like half of our pop-ups are explaining Indian snacks. One of our biggest sponsors is an Indian snack company and like called Karana Foods. Had to name their name because like we just, you know, food is love. You have to eat. You're too skinny. And I think that goes across many cultures, but it definitely happens in India. So yeah, I think adding those aspects to, and I have to throw, I have to shout out people like Critical Role and Matt putting in aspects of other cultures into their fantasy world. Because Jasmine, our DM, wrote for the current campaign and helped to write the city of Marquette so that we could have a little bit more of that South Asian flavor to it. And the first time I heard Matt say dhoti pants, I was like, what? Oh my gosh, that's us. That's our thing. That's so cool. And that's inclusion. That's exciting. That's people saying, hey, we dig your world and we want to include you in it. And for us with Desiquest, we want to invite people to our party. So come to our party. We will feed you. We will dress you just like we do with all of our guests. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, because every tabletop role-playing game, I mean, really everything in life, but especially role-playing games, it's such an opportunity for inclusion, because everybody wants to be included in the party.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be included in a game. I hate elimination games.
Yeah.
They hurt my feelings. Dodgeball is a travesty. But these kinds of games, you can invite people into them, and you can make these dynamics, fate dynamics, mythology dynamics, the same as people are doing with video games now.
It's so impressive how much the TTRPG space has allowed for inclusivity. But I really love the fact that when we get to watch you guys, the reactions to the other people's choices, because you're playing a character when you're doing the character, but you see a little bit of everybody's personality when you are watching their reactions to other people's choices.
Oh, yeah.
Omar is hilarious to watch.
The greatest.
Because everything that they do, it's just like,
yeah,
and it's so big, it's so fun.
He's hilarious, and then he will have tremendously incisive, poignant moments where you're like, I do not want to mess with this person. And he's just an incredible performer, and one of the sweetest humans you could possibly meet.
That's so
and
wonderful
I feel like that in the entire gaming industry, in video games as well. Julia and I talk about this all the time. We are so lucky. You know, you can see by our guests, we are so lucky to be surrounded by people with such extraordinary talent and extraordinary hearts, who really want to give of themselves to each other, because at the core of all of this is play. And Julia herself is such a connector. I feel like she's worked on every video game ever in the history of video games, and she's such a connector. She always wants to. I'm talking about you in the third person while you're sitting there. But she's such a connector. She always, like, even just the work that she does with the Help Network is so specifically about connecting people and service. And I think a lot of that exists in the gaming industry because it is a collaborative industry. You cannot do any of it alone.
So amazing to hear. That's just so amazing to hear. Okay, we have to keep going. I could talk to you guys for hours, like, seriously. Character select seems like such a wonderful way to connect fan favorite characters with actors that truly love them, as we mentioned earlier. So far, what has been the best thing for you guys to come out of the release of character select?
You first. I was going to say, I think the note from David has to be the highlight, just because we didn't do this we didn't do it for the actors to hear about their performances. That was like not a goal. It wasn't even a thought. It was about hearing about journeys and how, and kind of helping people understand that every journey into the game industry looks very different. Getting like a little bit of life advice in there as well. And then getting to hear someone like talk excitedly about something that formed their path, their career, and also giving us a little bit of time to talk about maybe something that there's a little bit of insight into, like with Jennifer Hale. We have a lot of stuff we are able to talk about, and Michael Chu, that we're able to talk about that's a little bit more behind the scenes and getting some of that stuff. But the biggest surprise has absolutely been getting the feedback from the actors that we're talking about, and Anj can talk about that.
Yeah, no, I will absolutely second that motion, because both Matt and David are friends of ours, but I don't know how well they know each other. And so you know, we had let David know that, like, hey, you're featured on our first episode. Matt wanted to talk about you, and he was like, oh, that's really sweet. And then he listened, and he sent this beautiful text to send to Matt. And so we passed that on, and then Matt was like, that's so cool that he sent that. And like, you're Matt Mercer. But yes, of course, because that both of them have, it's just a mutual admiration society that now they can connect over the next time, you know, they end up meeting or being at a convention together. And that has been such an unexpected joy, to plant those seeds with people. And I can't wait. We have a few more coming up that'll be really fun to do that with. But I think that's going to be an ongoing, the gift that keeps on giving for us.
There's there's so much critique that happens in these roles, and it happens right when they come out.
Yeah.
And so to be able to go back and look at something with history, with knowledge, with all the experience that Matt has, the words that he's describing, the intent in David's performance, like I'm sure it left David a little bit speechless, because you're like, oh, someone actually got all of that from 20 years ago or whatever.
And that was specifically what David said in his text. He was like, it means so much because that is exactly what I was going for, is how Matt broke it down. And it means so much to me to hear that. And I'm hoping that all of the people that we get a chance to talk about will have a moment of being able to realize, wow, people are seeing it. Because as an actor, and as a creator, especially, because we so want to point out how small our actor parts are in the grand scheme of things. You know, we are tiny cogs in a huge wheel, and these characters are created far before we show up. Yeah. And so getting to highlight the work of the developers is really, really, it's one of our top goals there, is letting people know not only what goes on behind the scenes, but letting people know who maybe want to get into games. Oh, I didn't realize that was a thing. I didn't realize I could do that in games. I didn't realize that job existed. That has been a really cool thing to come out of it too.
I think it's also just so special the way that your podcast works, is going off of what you just said about Matt, him being able to talk about somebody that impacted him, and then us listening to that podcast. And there's a whole generation of people who were inspired by Matt Mercer. So it's you're creating a cycle of like respect to the people who have done things before, while also respecting the love and joy that these people who are currently doing things, because of those other people. I saw a lot of that with Matt. I saw a lot of that with Erica. And on top of that, we talked earlier about you being excited that you're friends with the people you're friends with. And Jennifer Hale, when you guys started that podcast with the episode with Jennifer, it was so oh my gosh, it's geeking out. You're Jennifer Hale. Oh my gosh. It's like, you guys are friends. You know that, right? You don't have to like be so like.
No, but we are that way in real life. And especially this trio of friends, Julia, Jen, and I, are so tight. I mean, there's a reason that we went all the way up to Canada and saw her at her house to do this episode. And part of friendship is being excited about how awesome your friends are, right? So no, we don't need to be excited about people. We are excited about people.
So great to hear too.
Yeah, it's because they're ballers. They're all amazing. They're all incredible at their craft. And also getting to make your friends blush is really fun.
I can imagine.
And we don't always know their full credits. Again, sorry, lawnmower right outside my window.
Oh, good.
We don't always know their full credits. And so getting to do this process, I was saying before we started recording, Anj, that even just reading your bio and getting to just gush over you was special for me, because again, we're friends. We're not reading each other's bios. We're not digging up all the things we've done in the past. That's
totally. When I read your bio, I was like, okay, it's legit. She has worked on every video game. And that's another thing that's been wonderful about making these friendships, is that so many of the friendships that we've made, we maybe know one thing, maybe we connected because we were in one game or we worked on one thing together, but didn't know the incredible, that was just the tip of the iceberg. And so learning those things about your friends after you've already grown to love them is a really special thing.
That's so good. You guys are so sweet. It's so great talking to you guys. We only have one question left, and this is a big one. But it does all work. A question we always end on for our show is, what is one happy memory in your time working in your industry? So it's the entire time you guys have done what you're doing that will always stay with you as a happy memory.
Oh my God, there's so many.
I know. It's a question that stumps people, but there's always something that comes up, even if it's not the one.
Yeah. The very first one that comes up is we met, I and my friend Carolina, who plays Sombra, we met this young lady and her younger brother at a convention, and she had told us he was on the spectrum and he was nonverbal until he started playing Overwatch. and started watching Symmetra and started watching Sombra, and he began to speak. And exactly, like like how do you even describe what it means to be able to know that a game can have that effect on a person, that can bring a family together like that, and can crack the shell open of a person who maybe just doesn't necessarily know how to function in this very square world, but is brilliant. And this kid has gone on to be such an incredible student and be so lively and so special. And yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one. And I have Michael Chu and the gang at Overwatch to thank for that, because they created such an incredible representation of someone on the spectrum who worked with their challenges, even though many of them continued to be difficult throughout their life, found a way to, as she says in the comic, it doesn't bother me anymore because I can do things no one else can do.
That's so amazing.
That's so amazing. Mine is, I don't have anything that deep. I've been really fortunate enough to hear from a lot of actors who have read my book or been in classes with me and things like that, and have found confidence, found the ability to keep going. They've booked jobs, all of those things. That fills my cup every single day. I talk about on one of the episodes an actor who kind of put themselves out there and booked a role, and that was really huge. A lot of my really cool things I can't talk about because as much as I'm allowed to, it's not even stuff that comes out in the future. There's a lot of stuff I've done in the past that I'm just NDA'd to life on.
Wow.
But I think that probably the thing that's most memorable right now is the release of Tears of the Kingdom, because my company, the Help Network, we're only about 6 years old. And we got that project pretty early on in our existence, and worked on it for the majority of us being open. Couldn't talk about it. No one knew we were working on it. Getting to release that into the world and say, yes, I cast it. Yes, we did all the recording, editing, everything. We did script adaptation. Hari Lee is this phenomenal director that basically hadn't done any big games before and came in and just like knocked its socks off. And just being able to do all of that at a new company that's my own is really special.
That's so cool. And where can people find your business so that they can see what you guys got going on?
It's the Help Network. It's HALPNET.com. And then I'm on all the socials at Julia BS Casting.
That's awesome. Guys, thank you all so much. We just want to thank you again for joining us on the We Interview series. It has been so great hearing about Character Select, available on all platforms right now. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And where can people find you outside of the Character Select on the internet? Where can they find you?
So Julia, you can find it Julia BS Casting on all the places. And you can find me at Sweet Anj with 3 E's. It was a long time ago, and it was a nickname. I wasn't thinking about branding. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about fun stuff. So it's SWEEETANJ in all the places.
Phenomenal. Thank you guys so much. And check out Character Select right now.
Thank you.